Hi there, welcome back. This video is just a quick one and its purpose is to answer some questions that I keep getting regarding the software that I use to do all this painting, this marking off of the schematics as I check them. And I've answered the questions numerous times, but it seems that some people don't seem to be able to get the software that I mentioned to work the way I do. So I thought I'd just do a quick demonstration and answer those questions. The other question I get quite frequently is where I get my schematics from. So I think I'll take the opportunity of this video to show you that as well. All right, let's get going. You know, the best thing is it's all free. Great. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to say this. When I finished editing this video, I realized I'd taken two very simple points that would have been very easy and quick to transmit to you and turned it into half an hour of yakking away. It seems to be my way, I apologize for that, but if you want to make it easier for yourself, you can skip forward to the time that I'll indicate below, which is where I start talking about the Adobe editing feature, so you don't have to go through all this blah blah blah. I'll also take this opportunity, as I blab on, to ask you, if you enjoy these videos, to subscribe, to share, to like. And now, if you do want to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon. I finally opened a Patreon account, responding to quite a few questions from subscribers. So if you want to support the channel, please go to Patreon and do so. Your support will be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of the video. The first thing to do when starting a restoration is to get as much information as you can on the set that you're working on. So on Google, we'll look for the information on the latest restoration that I'm doing. And we get here, here's the first one, radiomuseum.org. But we also get a link to some videos. Some guy called Electronics Old and New by M. Caldera. Anyway, Radio Museum. This is the primary go-to website when trying to find information on a set, especially if it's European, primarily German sets. It gives you quite a bit of information right up front. It'll tell you the year, in this case 1960-61. It'll also tell you the tube lineup, which is incredibly important because it'll probably prepare me for what I'm going to find in the set. Because I do mostly German radios and Dutch radios, they generally use a very similar lineup of tubes, which is very helpful because once you've done a few, and I think I'm on about 70 or whatever it is, you end up with quite a bit of stock of these tubes. And they do vary a bit, but not much. For example, the ECC 85 I know is the FM front end. It's a double triode. The ECH 81 is a mixer oscillator. EF 89 is usually the IF amplifier. EABC 80 is it's got a triode and it's got the diodes, so triple diode, so it's used in the detector circuits, both for AM and FM. This has actually got a funny name. It's called a triple diode triode detector. If you can say that without stuttering, you're better than me. EM84 is a magic eye, and the EL84 is a very, very common power tube on these radios. So in this particular case, all these tubes, I've got quite a few of them lying around from previous restorations, from previous purchases, and just in some cases from part sets that I've ended up with. It also tells you what the IF frequency is, in this case for the AM, 460 kilohertz. It doesn't actually give us the FM IF frequency, but we know that that is 10.7 megahertz. It tells you the bands, how it's powered, weight and size. And it also, very interestingly, gives you the price in first year of sale, 256 D-Mark. Now, I found this quite an amazing bit of information because on some other radios that I've done, especially things like the SABA, the TELEFUNKENs, from the 50s, I actually went to the trouble at one point of, I think it was the SABA Freiburg W2 that I restored, and I found out or looked up what the average worker in Germany earned at the time and what the radio cost. If I'm not mistaken, it was something like 3 months' salary which gives you an idea of how important these things were in those days. It was the primary source of entertainment, the radio in the home. And the amount of money people were prepared to invest in it is really something that today is difficult for us to understand, with the price of televisions and radios and all sorts of stuff having come down dramatically. But it is, as I said, something which I find quite interesting. And then, of course, sometimes you have on here some information, other forum posts that people have gone into. Now, radiomuseum.org has an incredible amount of information. It'll give you schematics, it'll give you service manuals, it'll give you quite a lot of information on just about, I won't say every set you can find, but damn close to all the sets you can find. People have put it on here. The members are very, very attentive and very dedicated. It's a fantastic website. It does require you to become a member. So I'm going to look at the other options that I normally use to find schematics and service manuals, and we'll see how we get along. So if I go back here, let's see what else I find here. These are sometimes sales offers. Here's one, Dump Radio Forum. You'll find quite a bit of information on some of the German forums, which is a bit of a problem for me because I don't speak German, but this looks promising. Rheinperl 5717 zip, got it here. Let's see what we get. Right, we've got ourselves 2 images, and this is the full schematic. There we go. I don't normally use a link like that. I'll show you the common ones I use. But here's a schematic. It's in PDF format. It's pretty clear. In fact, it's very clear. You can see the component values. This is a very, very, very clear schematic. Let's see the other one. What's the other one? The other one is, okay, that's even better. You've got the PCB layout, component layouts, the wiring diagram. It's all on one page, really. You've got the positioning of coils and capacitors and everything you need, tubes, top view. You've got a bottom view, which tells you where some of the components are, which of course are important because you are going to be needing them when you follow, if you follow these instructions for IF alignment at 460 kilohertz over here, the FM alignment with a 10.7 megahertz IF frequency. And there we go. We've got everything pretty much that we need. So that is a stroke of luck on this particular website because we've got everything that we need. I normally don't use the forums to try and find them because I know a couple of websites that are pretty good, and one of them is nvhr.nl. Now, nvhr.nl is the Nederlandse Vereniging voor de Historie van de Radio. Now, that's my version of the Dutch heading over there. It's the Dutch organization or organization for the history of radio. And I apologize for my errors in translation and accent to my Dutch viewers. And what you do here is you go to schemas on the left here, put in the model, in this case low. I'm not going to put in loewe-opta, I'm just going to put in low because I know that loewe-opta on the search engine here sometimes has a dash, sometimes doesn't, sometimes has a space, sometimes doesn't, but low will be good enough. And it's the Rheinperl, and here we go. Now what we find in this particular case is we don't have the Rheinperl 5717. We've got the 2054, 2054W, 24716. It's probably closest to this one, but we don't actually have the one I'm looking for. Now generally we do. Like for example here, there's the schematic, there are the instructions. Beautiful. I normally find it here. This is an odd case where I didn't. Okay. The other thing that it does, that I use this for sometimes, is I'll go to schemas. Let's say I have a radio that I am not sure what the model is. And a good example was the last sort of one video restoration that I did, which quite honestly I didn't know the model number. It was the Noordmende Rigoletto, and I didn't know what the model number was. So what I decided to do was I would look for, where is it? Oproep ontvanger, so a receiver. This is just to cut down the options that come up, and I was going to sort it by year and search. And this is what I came up with. It's sorted by year. Now I knew that particular radio was one of the later models, so I'm not that interested in these earlier ones. I could actually have filtered it further, but I knew it was somewhere around here, and this is exactly what I found. I found these three that were very, very similar. And there I found the schematic. Subsequently, I actually confirmed this because, in fact, it was written on the back. But anyway, that video will show you. I found it by chance after I'd actually decided this was the one. And the way I decided is I opened those three and compared some of the tubes, some of the components, and I've got everything on here. And it's brilliant. And sometimes, just to identify what model radio you've got, you do it like that. You give it a search phrase. You start from somewhere and you just keep filtering till you get the one that looks exactly the same. And sometimes they're not exactly the same, but you know which one is close enough for you to start investigating further. So that's the NVHL. The other one I usually use is something called doctsf.com. There's what we come into, doctsf.com, and I can put a radio in here, loewe-opta, and I'm going to put Rheinperl. Spelt it wrong. Loewe-opta Rheinperl. Didn't find it on here. Let's just try loewe-opta. Here we go. It didn't find any on Rheinperl, which tells me that in all likelihood this thing doesn't exist on there. Now I can look further. Oh no, that's decreasing. I don't speak French either. 75, no. We know it's a 61. Here's 63, 63, 62, 61. Cobalt, not that one. Bella. Well, this one doesn't seem to have it either. 5751. No, it doesn't have it either. I've actually found that when I don't find one on nvhr.nl, I usually don't find it here either. What I generally do is check both. There's another one which is, if I put in loewe-opta, and I type in Electro-Tanya, this comes up. The site is Electro-Tanya with a Y. And this one is also a very good source for schematics. This one is more generalized. It's not just on tube radios and tube equipment. You can find it on just about any piece of electronic equipment that has schematics attached, service manuals, and so on. And what you do here, I can see they don't have it here either. So it looks like on this particular example that I've given you, we've been lucky that we found, this is for the 2054 and the 4716 from 1953. So they don't have the one we want. But I wouldn't discard this particular link. It's a very, very good source for schematics. This particular Rheinperl 5717W seems to be pretty rare in terms of information. I'm actually quite lucky that I found that link on that forum. But generally, I would find it here as well. And what you do here is you can download I think it's 3 manuals or so, or schematics per day if you're not registered, but you can still do that. So we end up one way or the other with a schematic or instruction manual, and that's the first thing we need to start off with before going into any restoration. Okay, now the next question is, how do I do that editing? Let's get on to that. Okay, let's get down to the most important part of this video, which is to answer the question regarding the software that I use to do the markups when I'm restoring and checking the radios. The software is Adobe Reader. Now, Adobe Reader is a really old piece of software that's been updated over the years, and the version they have now is the one I'm using. Now, if you don't have this version, I'm not sure that the versions prior to this one did allow for the editing. I'm almost certain that it did, but I'm not 100% sure. But because this is free, you can always update anyway, so why not? So look for Adobe Reader free, and we've got here Adobe Acrobat Reader DC installed for all versions. We get to the install page and you're given a set of options. Now this is the important part. You can select an operating system, and obviously the one I'm using is the Mac OS. I have it installed already. I'm not going to do it, but let's say you had Windows 10. It also allows for Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows XP, blah, 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 blah. So it's pretty extensive. Select a language, whichever language you want, and you select a version. Now in this particular case, there's only one. Reader DC 2019 012 20 034, English for Windows. So you select a version and then you download and it installs. Nothing magical about that. So the next thing you do is you're going to edit, or you're going to open the PDFs of the schematics in your new software. Now it has to be in PDF because this is what the software does. And if you recall from the download of the information I found, I have 2 JPEGs. Now this is the schematic. This is 001, and 0002 is the instructions and further information. I'm interested in 1. Now to convert this to PDF, in this case I've got a Mac operating system, so I can very simply just go export to PDF, use PDF, and there's my PDF. Now what you've seen happening is the minute I opened it, it opened it with our Acrobat Reader, which is Acrobat Reader DC. Okay, I can also do it differently. Obviously let me just close all that. I can go here. Well, let's do this differently. Let's put that in there. I can go here, right click, open with, and there's my default, Adobe Acrobat Reader DC. And it opens up my file. What we have here now is the standard layout for the opening screen for the Mac version. The Windows 10 is slightly different in terms of look, but it's exactly the same in functionality. So I'll just show you how I go about this here. Let me rotate this first. It comes in the wrong orientation. I've got it rotated now. I can zoom in to different parts of the circuit. Various ways of doing that. I'm using just the pinching function of my fingers. I can move around, okay? And now what I want to do is, let's say for example I'm checking this, let's check this tube section, okay? And I want to mark off these lines that I've now checked continuity for. So what I do is I go to the right hand side here, and there's an item called comment. If I open comment, it gives me a whole set of, well, it gives me another menu up here with a whole lot of stuff. And if I look at it, I've got sticky note. I can highlight text if this was text. I can actually underline text if this was text, etc., 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 etc. I can actually add a text box. I can use a drawing tool. I can use an erasing tool. I can do stamp. I can do all sorts of stuff. But the stuff that really interests me generally are two tools here. One of them is the polyline, connected line. And it says here, to end the lines, double click on the last point. Now this is the one I want. So let me click on that. And I'm going to mark these off here. Now I can do, let me try it as just a standard. Click, 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 double click on the right or click on the right, and it completes. And there's my line. Now, why is this thing pink and why is it semi-transparent? Well, I can change the actual properties of that tool. For example, here, if I want to change that, say, to green, when I select that tool, it gives me these two options here. And if I click on that pink thing there, I can now choose the color, and it's for the fill. In this particular case, I'm interested in the borders, but I'll do both anyway. So I'll choose green, green, and the lines, I can choose the line thickness. Let's say I find that a little bit too thin, I can make it thicker or thinner, 6 points. If I go back to here just quickly, I've got the opacity on here at 49%. Let me make it 100%. And now if I go here and I mark that line, that's 100% opaque. That's not what I want. So I can do it various ways. I can actually correct it here, but it is actually better if I change it at the top. I can change all the properties of that line here by right-clicking it. I can change, if I go to properties, I can change its thickness. It's 6 points at the moment. I can make it 4 points. And there we go. Very simple. It's an edit function. I can delete it by selecting it and deleting it. And let's say now I'm happy with how I'm going to do this. I'm going to use 4 points, and I'm going to use green, and I'm going to use, what is it, 4 points, okay, and I want opacity, say 50%. If I check that it works, that's it, it works. So now all I need to do is every time I've checked part of the schematic, I go to Polyline and I choose the part I want to mark off. Click, click, double click. That ends the line. If I want to do another one, I go click, click, click. Let's say I've checked those two resistors, complete. And that's it. It's there. I can actually delete it, all right, and redo it, but that's basically how it works. Let me redo that one. If I hold down Shift as I'm moving this, it does 90 and 45 degree lines, horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. So I normally use that function as well by holding Shift as I move the mouse around. So I've got the lines working. Now, what if I change a capacitor? Let's say, for example, let's say I do, well, here, I do that, I've checked that capacitor is fine. Let's say I've checked that switch function and it's fine. And I want to carry on. I check that variable resistor and it's fine. And now I get to the part where this capacitor is now going to be checked, and this one is one of the ones I changed. What I normally do is I do the first part, well actually I draw right across it. And now I want to make a red mark on there to make sure that I know that it's actually been changed. So the comments signed off, let me go there. I go to line and I choose, say, red. And I also want to make this 50% opaque. But I'm actually going to make it a little bit thicker than the other one. The other one was 4. I'm going to make that, call that 6 points. Okay. Now I come here and I can do the same thing. And I now have that capacitor indicated as having been changed. The other thing I can do while I'm in this edit function, now I can actually, for example, in one case I corrected some values, and what I did there is I marked it in red. The fill was no fill. If you want no fill, you just put 0% opaque. And the border was red line, red line and 50% opaque. And let's make the border, let's make it 3 points. Okay, what we're going to do here is, for example, this one here was changed, so I can do this. But I've got it the wrong way around. So I can go to Properties, and the fill color is whatever, but I want the fill color. This is the other way around. I want that to be black, or red, sorry. The outline is red, and the fill color is totally transparent. There we go. If I want to make that a little bit darker, I can do so. If I want to make it thicker, I can do so, or thinner. So now I've got myself a note on here. Now I want to write here that this was not measuring 500K, it was measuring 2 meg. So I go here and I open, let's see if that one works, add text. Just come here, no, not that one. Open a text box and say 2 meg. Just normal text. Hang on, what's happening here? Black. Make the text smaller. The text box, I really don't want it to show at all. So I go here and what do I do there? Borders, borders. Properties. Style, no border. Simple as that. And there we go. Now I can move that around or delete it. Put it next to the component and I've got my note. I can make any type of change I want here. I can make that a different font, I can make it bigger, I can make it red, I can do whatever I like. But as you can see, I've now got this whole thing in a way that I can basically edit any way I like. And all these tools are usable. As I said, the only ones I really use are line, polyline, and the text box. I think that's about all I've done, I've used so far. Now I can do things like, put an arrow here if I want to highlight something. And I can then, move that around and say that that should be a reading there. This is really as basic as it gets in terms of using the functionality of the software. There's no secret. Now, I know that in the past, I've been told that the versions don't do this. They can't find the comments. It is a bit strange because this is commenting and you're actually drawing on it. But just look for commenting. If you have an older version of Adobe Reader, look for comments or commenting. Sometimes it's over here. And you'll see a whole lot of tools come up. And just experiment. Import a PDF, get it in the orientation you like, and just experiment and see what works for you. But it will work. This is something I've been using for some time. The first few restorations I did, I actually used to print a page and put it in a plastic file folder, those plastic covers. But I found that this is the best way because it really does emulate a magic marker. If you look at this, it really does emulate a magic marker. And the beauty of this is you can undo it. If you find you've made a cock-up, you just, delete it and do it again. And so it makes it very, very easy to keep track of all the restorations phases that you've done. The other thing I've done, as you've seen, is I've done different phases and different colors. So let's say that I go on to the next day, for example, and I want to do something else, I just choose here the polyline and choose whatever, orange, you know. See if that works. Yep, that's orange. So the stuff I do tomorrow, I might do in yellow or orange, and this is the result. You end up with different colors for either different parts of the schematic or different days that you worked on it. And it's a fantastic way of keeping track of everything. There we go. So there we are. The other thing is this actually does have a Finder window. The one that I've been working on, I can go there because it's a recent file, so it keeps track of that. It always opens in the original orientation, so I rotate right. And here we have it. This is the result of that work that I showed you on the restoration of the 5717. As you can see, I did different stages and different days. The green was the first, and so on and so forth. And the next part will be the FM front end, which I'm already working on. But it does make for a very, very neat solution. You will find it, whether it's in an old version or a new version. But as I said, this is a free software, so why not get the newer version? You can get it for any system, operating system, so there's really no reason why you shouldn't update your system. And that's it for me so far. This thing has gone on for some time. Honestly, I do tend to ramble. So I apologize for that, but I do hope this answers a lot of questions. They are always the same questions, and this makes it easier for me to better explain exactly how I do things. Thanks for watching. If you appreciate this video, press like, subscribe, share, all that. Support on Patreon. You can now do that. And happy restorations. Bye for now.